Hey, this is Tyler Ramsey, and this is Painful Lessons Podcast. We love hard-earned stories of wisdom. I'll tell you what, we like art here. I'm an artist, and I'm real down with the art of growth. At Painful Lessons Podcast, we like to talk to people that have great stories of painful lessons. Hilarious painful lessons are our favorite. Grueling painful lessons are usually terrific. If someone's had a real rough painful lesson and then they've developed a sense of perspective about it, that usually comes with some humor. Anyway, I have a mentor. As an artist, I have a mentor. I love the guy. He's terrific. I have an artist that has been a terrific mentor for me. When I was coming out as an artist, everyone has kind of a coming out moment for different things. Like RuPaul probably had a moment where she was like, hey, you might know me as this dude doing whatever. And I'll tell you what, I'm about to come out real hard as a drag queen. Well, an artist goes through something similar. I was a television producer, and I could feel in my bones that I wanted a medium that didn't take so long to share with somebody. And so I was drifting more and more towards visual arts, drifting away from screenwriting, drifting away from producing reality TV. And I wanted to become an artist. And so you got to really come out hard. And I had met this artist that I love named Trek Thunder Kelly. What a great name. And he took my buddy and I, Army, to Burning Man and just blew my mind. And it made me so excited, just come out strong as an artist. So anyone coming out for any reason, rock and roll, don't do it quietly, do it loud. And I'm going to stop delaying and go right to my terrific friend, Trek Thunder Kelly.
Hey, brother.
Yes, fantastic having you here.
Thank you, man.
Get your mic a little closer to your face, Trey.
I am filled with, dude, you've had the most exciting life, and it is at some points included things like you ran for governor against Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you ran as something called the Blue Party. That was super cool. For 1 year of your life, you wore a tuxedo. And if you went to the gym, you had a cutoff tuxedo. And the rule was that you would only wear tuxedos. And you had another year of your life that you wore a different word on your chest every day. And now, this is why I have you here. I want to talk to you about your new art piece. You're living as an art piece, art. Will you tell me about it?
Yeah, as you know, I tend to create sort of performative art pieces around interacting with reality itself.
Yeah.
And I find that very interesting because from my perspective, flow is the alignment between chance and choice. And when it becomes a dance, it's art. So chance means the outer world of sort of change and things you can't control. And choice, of course, is the inner world of what you can control and how you decide to react to things. And where those merge into a sort of creative dance, that's what art is for me. And that's what flow is.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. I did some experiential performance art pieces, as you know, several years ago, where I spent a year alone in the desert, curious about solitude. I had a stranger choose 12 countries. I spent a month in each country that stranger chose and volunteered in those countries as another year. And then I drove my van that said "The Good in America" on it around America for a year.
Yeah.
And it's been a while since I've done one of these. I'm a painter and a muralist, as you know. It's been a while since I've done a performative, reality-based performance art piece. And I was just feeling the need more recently because of the way that the world is and even how it's affecting myself, in that there seems like a lot of conflict and a lot of bitterness. And going along with painful lessons idea is, how do we make these lessons less painful? And how do we actually create environments or triggers that we can have those hard-earned wisdoms that you talked about in the in the introduction. So what I'm doing this year, sort of going along with the word project where I wore a 365-word poem over the course of a year, and riffing on driving around in the van that said "The Good in America," which those words unexpectedly had a great effect on my experience with the country that I drove through and the people that I met. So I'm wearing the word kind on my chest for a year.
Okay.
It's going to be imprinted on all my clothes, and I set up my rules because rules equals consistency, which equals style, which equals brand, basically. So there's going to be consistency to this, which is the rules. I have to wear the word kind. It can be imprinted on my shirts. It can't be obstructed by necklaces or jackets. It's going to be in the same font every day. I'm not going to look cool wearing this, but I just want people, when they see me, I want that to elicit whatever authentic emotions they have from seeing that word.
Okay.
And I need to hold myself also to a higher level of accountability for my own self, because I do find in myself an impatience and frustration sometimes. So I'm just curious. Most of these are driven through curiosity. What would it be like to wear the word kind on my chest and actually try to really be kind for a year?
Okay, so I'm going to to really point. Hey, by the way, do we have some water? I feel like I want to help you clear your throat. I don't see any water actually. Okay, this is Gatorade.
Here, hand me your big gulp right there, brother.
Yeah. So this is. I think that you rushed past some really dramatic things. You spent a year in the desert, and it wasn't like you were on a golf course in Palm Springs. What desert were you in?
So I had been traveling the world on that first global travel trip, that stranger. And so I thought, you know what? I need to compress my world down into something small. And I was curious about what true solitude would be. So I chose the American deserts of the Southwest because I was familiar with them. I grew up in Albuquerque. And I aimed for the Native American reservations initially because I felt that I could find a type of solitude out there unavailable because of lack of population primarily, unavailable in other areas. So yes, the first part of the year I was a shepherd on the Navajo reservation and lived in a mud hogan, which is basically an igloo, and read all of the world's primary religious texts front to back because I wanted to have my own experience with them.
Yeah.
And then I had the sheepdogs, I had the sheep, and I'd see people maybe twice a month when I went down for supplies, and I realized that I wasn't peeling down all the way to the bottom. I was reading, which was a type of entertainment. I had the sheepdogs and the sheep as family, and so after a few months of freezing at 6,000 feet or 5,000 feet near Monument Valley, I decided that I needed to go peel all the way down. So
that wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. So
these dogs are way
they're
too
my
social.
friends.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'd sleep with the sheep at night in a platonic way. So
not to be confused.
Through some Navajo buddies of mine, I basically met some good friends, a family that they were overseeing a ranch at the time. The father was of sheep, sort of off the Navajo reservation. So I'd had some sheeping experience. I helped them with this, and then they alerted me of some land where I could probably be very alone.
Totally isolated.
Totally isolated. So I figured out my caloric needs and bought about $4,000 worth of canned food from Walmart. And I hauled a tank of water out there and the food and hid it. And then this is about 40 miles south of Chaco Canyon in New Mexico. So there's a lot of ancient Anasazi ruins around there, which I later discovered because I was alone and I'd just hike alone. And so I built my own shelter I didn't have a tent, a sleeping bag. I never built a fire.
Jeez.
I didn't have anything to read or write with. Of course, I didn't have my phone. I just wanted pure interaction and intersection between me and whatever would happen. The environment, my own mind. I did have lucid hallucinations, which I'm writing a book called The Silver Path, which addresses this year specifically. But it was an amazing experience.
When does the book come out?
It's just about
No, when?
Oh, I'm finishing the third draft. I'm just
Yeah.
getting it to where it's densely
Cool.
philosophical, but hopefully entertaining.
Yeah.
It's the truth, so I can't change anything in it.
Sure. It's so wild that you. I'm aware of what you left to go do this. You had the sickest gallery in Venice, on what is like one of the most expensive streets for real estate you can find, Abbot Kinney. And when I knew, like, I remember when I met you, you had that killer gallery and you're just crushing chicks all the time. You were like the playboy of the area.
Oh, man.
You were like the playboy of the area. And I mean, and because you lived in the gallery, you had a loft in this, and the gallery is now an Aviator Nation.
Yeah, it was the first Aviator Nation.
It turned into the very first Aviator Nation. You're right. I mean, you couldn't have had a more prime spot. And so you left all of that to go do this almost like Jesus moment. Because Jesus had like 40 days in the desert.
And this was a year. and it was 3 years. So I told my friends and family I'd be disappearing for 2 to 5 years, which I did.
Yeah.
And you guys didn't know where I was, and I was just gone. And I felt like I was at an age, and I'd experienced LA, and I love LA, but I was just getting a little bored with myself even.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, you know what? As an artist, sometimes you have to throw a wrench into the painting or splatter art and then make something out of the chance that you're given through choice. And so I just threw a wrench into my life and shattered it, and had an amazing time realigning those pieces into something that was very beautiful for me, and that I will carry with me forever as actually lifetimes that I've lived within this life.
That's interesting. It's like for this project, let's say it's called a project, Painful Lessons. You are a champion of the idea. If you are, let's say, in some kind of deep funk, or if you're feeling that your life is like become something that's not authentic to, it's lost a sense of authenticity, that your advice would be just destroy that and do something completely different.
Yes, or just realize that pain and discomfort are your allies, because they knock you out of your comfort zone and enable you to see perspectives from different angles and different vectors that you would have never seen. And that gives you wisdom you would have never had. And through empathy, you can sort of gain these through other people in less painful ways. But unless you actually feel that yourself, you're not going to have such indelible, authentic lessons to learn from. So in the desert, for instance...
That's great. Profound.
In the desert, I chose to have what I call deprivations. At the end of each month, I would do something very uncomfortable for me just to see, out of curiosity. And it always happened that something unexpected, I would learn from it. So at the end of the first month in the desert, I blindfolded myself for a week, so I'd be without sight.
Right.
At the end of the second month, I had these earplugs, so I went without sound for a week. The third month, I went without sight and sound, full Helen Keller, alone in the desert for a week alone.
Okay.
And then the last week I did without food, water, or sleep. So within this environment...
Wait, what do you mean without sight or sound you would wear...
I'd wear a blindfold and earplugs,
Dude,
alone in the desert for a week.
You are so crazy.
But I learned and I also wore a barbed wire collar around my neck because I felt like I needed to have a pain element, which most world religions have. And I derived these ideas from the religious texts that I read in the Hogan.
Dude.
So I wore a barbed wire collar around and you know what? I learned from this barbed wire collar. This collar is around my neck, and it was so scratchy, and I'd get these calluses. I'd sleep in it. I wasn't allowed to take it off unless I had to change clothes or whatever. One of the things I learned from the barbed wire collar is that's like a bad relationship.
Yeah.
Because I got so used to the barbed wire collar on my neck, sometimes I would set it down to bathe.
Right.
And once a week, and and I'd feel this anxiety, like something that I was used to and familiar with is suddenly gone. And I realized, oh my God, I prefer the pain of the barbed wire collar and having it on than having it off. So it's sort of like a bad relationship. You prefer the pain of the comfort rather than having the comfort gone and feeling that anxiety. Yeah. So that's one of the unexpected lessons I learned from wearing a barbed wire collar for 100 days.
Dude, you're the craziest person.
I mean, we can go on and on, as you know. So importantly, I'm wearing this word kind for a year, starting on my birthday. I'm basically going to be trying to paint murals globally that say be kind in the languages of the world. And what I hope that people derive from this over this year is also I'm going to have to come up with my own ideas of what kind means and exemplify those ideas. And I just hope, listen, for this next year, I'm at Trek Thunder Kelly on Instagram. I've got to figure out my YouTube and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But let's all do kind stuff. Let's be imaginative. Let's... like a friend of mine said, I do these runs, these races. I'm like, hey, let's do a kind race where we run through homeless, areas where there's lots of homeless, and everybody has to give out dollar bills and presents.
Yeah.
Anything that's cool and asymmetric. I just talked to some guys that have a race car. They might want to let me paint kind on the race car, but then how do we take that to the next level? Let's take kids who have some sort of disability out in the race car so they can experience this. Like, what can we do?
I love that you're turning. It's like it's not like an artist that then also is maybe donating something. It's like the art is in the giving, which I think, or it is in the attitude. I think that's really amazing. We have a friend, and he's one of your closest friends, Morgan, made one of the funniest comments about you. And it was shortly after you had gone through your blue phase, which is when you ran for governor and you wore for a full year this one shade of blue.
Terrible shade.
Yeah, this terrible shade of blue. And Morgan you'd go out with Morgan, and I'm talking about Morgan. You'd go out with Morgan, and he told me, he goes, I love Trek, but there are times where it's difficult to be friends with him. He's like, you go into a place and then you have this buddy that's always in this one goofy ass shade of blue, or he's wearing a tux. You're at a house party, he's wearing a tuxedo, and sometimes he requires some explaining, but it's also the most fun thing. And I was like, that is a terrific description of a fun friend.
Well, that's the thing. And unexpectedly with the blue, I stopped looking at myself in reflective surfaces because I looked so ridiculous.
Oh gosh.
But also at the same time, my friends, after a while, people would react and they'd go, oh my God, I forgot you're wearing blue. So they had to erase it like power lines out of their reality that I was wearing blue. But I'll say this, like, truly dare to be silly. Dare to be silly. It opens up your world. Like, I started wearing a bear onesie when I ski now. And now one of my rules for myself is I can't go skiing unless I'm in a bear onesie. Yeah. And it just makes life silly and fun. And then people are yelling off the chair, there's the bear. And they see you at night at après ski in the bars afterwards in your bear onesie. And it's just like, dare to be silly. It's part of the fun of life.
That is definitely something that you reinforce in me. I think I'm aware, and I think that when I think about that, sometimes there are some elements of that make me recoil. Sometimes I will see someone and I think, oh my gosh, how desperate that person is trying to get attention. And normally, if I'm thinking that about something, it's because I'm maybe feeling insecure about something in myself. And in general, I think that I have nothing but support of the attitude of just have as much fun with life as you can, maximize the fun that you can. And I think that the silly is such a great thing to embrace. I mean, life is just so short. And
it's
to
so
take
serious
yourself
sometimes,
serious,
dude. Yeah.
Too serious is just such a a crying shame, and to err on the side of silly, even if it seems at times like a goofy, out of place thing. It's so much better than to err on the side of taking yourself too seriously.
And that's where Burning Man as an artist really affected me in the early 90s is art doesn't have to just be on a wall. Art can be lived, climbed on, interacted with. It should be. It should start a conversation and a dialogue. Yeah. It should even start a wrestling match. Who cares? As long as you're engaging and engaging strong with the art. The artist's job is to ask the questions to trigger that interaction.
Yeah.
And then, it's the audience or the viewership that engages in that dialogue. And hopefully they think differently after seeing your art, whatever that is.
Sure.
And let me point out something else that I feel is important. I'm very privileged. I was born in America to a middle-class family, had all the chances that most of the world doesn't get.
Yeah.
And I understand, and part of the reason why I like discomfort and a little bit of pain is it keeps me grateful. Even chosen pain, like most religions have, of maybe fasting for a month.
Sure.
That helps keep you grateful.
You are full of advantages. You have a brain that works very well. You can communicate, and you're an amazing communicator. And you're this dashing-looking white male. You have all of the things that have been an advantage through the years.
So I'm very lucky. I've sort of chosen to live in my car and storage spaces for a very long time. And I call it living contextually. I keep at the very front of myself how there's so many other people in the world.
Oh yeah, you live
suffering.
In a van. I feel like this. Yeah.
I live in my van.
But not like Chris Farley, who has that great SNL thing. Is like where he's the life coach. It's like, yeah. I can't remember what he says. Something is like living in a van by the river.
It's the couple of things are what I use for this. So it helps keep me grateful in a way. But I also know no matter what, there's people, and this is why travel is important, or just even engaging with people that you see here less fortunate, is you really see how lucky you are globally by I have everything that I need. I can go to Erewhon and Whole Foods and get some salad.
Sure.
Who cares? Like compared to most people in the world, and I watched 2 little kids die at my feet in Haiti, and
Yikes.
I put my shadow over them in the sun. They had cholera and they passed. Ugh, I can't talk about this. I'll cry. But I would dishonor them to complain ever about anything, ever. And even in America, I can get in a car crash and lose my arms and legs and still go see Dune 2 and eat Milk Duds, THX surround sound. So I wouldn't even complain under those conditions. And living contextually helps keep me happy. And a little bit of pain helps keep me grateful. Yeah. So you choose these things. And choice is what gives you power.
Well put. I mean, you're such a word wizard. I'm like just tickled by the fact that you said at one point we can just, no matter how you can get broken arms, broken legs, we can still go directly to Dune 2 and surround sound, eating Milk Duds, sitting in an air-conditioned room, just sipping a big gulp. And it's all perspective.
And this doesn't mean that you dishonor your ups and downs, but really understand where they are relative to the suffering of people in their world watching their kids get blown up right now.
Oh, gosh.
Or whatever. We have it really good. And let that elevate your happiness up. And then you can still honor your bad days, but realize they're existing in a little space this big.
Yeah, agreed. Because you were recently in Ukraine doing art.
Yes.
How was 6 months ago?
It was in June. So a few months ago, I had to come back for family matters, but
that's before they started kicking ass. That's when they were just getting their ass kicked.
I was there 2 years ago, and then I was there again. I came back. Well, when the Children's Hospital got bombed this summer, that pissed me off. And I know to follow my intuition to a degree. So the day after the Children's Hospital got bombed, I flew to Krakow, took a train to Kiev, went to the hospital, and with colleague of mine from Ukraine who's an artist. We worked with the kids who have cancer. We did art therapy with the little kids who have cancer who survived the bombing. And I met them in a bunker during 2 Russian missiles overhead. And they could still laugh and have life and love. And they were a big lesson to me because, hey, I mean, this is a 6-year-old with cancer that just had his hospital get bombed. And then we also painted murals in the underground bunkers of women's maternity wards. So instead of when the air sirens came on or when they got their telegram messages that they need to go underground, these dreary corridors, we tried to liven them up with some hope and color so that they could have a little more emotional cushion.
Gadzooks. Is it, is the place just is it going to be able to recover in the next decade?
Yes, it's very interesting. That's why you need to experience things personally and not just over the media or the press. There's things that you didn't expect, like Kiev is the northern parts away from Kiev were heavily hit, and I spent some time up there painting some murals on buildings and rusty cars, the sunflower, because that's their symbol of resilience and hope. Those areas look like World War II, with destruction and glass and even potentially booby traps. You're told to not walk on the grass because there could be landmines.
Sure.
But Kiev has been spared to a degree. They do get missiles coming in. And what I didn't realize, these are strong people and they're in a country at war, but they just keep on keeping on. They live life. So yes, are there air raids where you have to go underground and the streets are cleared? But when they come up, they're at the cafes smiling and they're like at the beach. So they're living life despite the war. And I think that's a smart way to live despite your problems. And this is a very specific and extreme problem.
Sure.
Like despite your problems, I'm inspired by them to laugh and love and live anyway,
You are maybe one of the most well-traveled people I've ever met. If you had 2 vacations, if you had 3 vacations, where would you go? 3 vacations.
How long are my vacations?
We're gonna do 3 vacations and 3 books. Let's say your vacations is you have a week.
A week per vacation. Well, I just go to places I haven't been. I would.
No, you gotta give someone advice. Like if someone asked me this, I'd say
not me,
Burning
but
Man.
you.
Yeah, my answer. If I said if I had 3 opportunities to travel, to take a trip, the 3 things I would do, I would go to Mumbai, I would go to Tokyo, and I would go to Burning Man.
Well, inside the United States, and I've spent a week in every state in America. I've also volunteered in all the states of America. I would say number 1, Google it. It's called the Grand Circle Tour. It's the highest concentration of national parks and national monuments in America, and it's truly, without a doubt, one of the most beautiful areas on the planet.
Okay.
Grand Circle Tour. Do it. You can do it in a week to 10 days, 2 weeks. That's Grand Canyon, Zion, Bryce, all of that.
Okay.
Second, Burning Man, don't listen to anybody else. This is not a festival. This is one of the most important creative events in all of human history. It's what the word zeitgeist means. Zeitgeist means spirit of the age. Do not miss this. This is where everybody is kind. Everybody is creative. We are the best of what we are at Burning Man. After a year of all the violence and bad news, I need Burning Man as a battery that has recharged my hope for humanity and my respect for how amazing humans can be. I need this. And I recommend everybody please go to Burning Man and don't listen to anybody else. And then the third, within America, that's a tough one. I'm going to the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta this weekend. If you have kids, this is truly one of the most amazing events where between 500 and 1,000 balloons ascend at the same time into the morning sky in New Mexico, which has some of the most beautiful sunsets in the world. Then you can go to Santa Fe for amazing food, Taos, to see how the Pueblo Indians have lived for 1,000 years and more. And then, you fly back on Sunday or Monday, but it's a spectacular event. And all three of these events are what the word awe means for me, which is not often experienced. When you go to the edge of the Grand Canyon, you experience the word awe because it is just bigger than yourself. It's so beautiful. And similarly to Burning Man, people say, oh, I know the Grand Canyon. I've seen it on postcards.
Yeah.
It's deep. It's colorful. No. Until you stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon, a postcard does not tell you anything about what you're seeing.
Yeah.
So Burning Man is the human Grand Canyon, created by humans, which gives you an enormous amount of love for what our species can do.
Sure.
And then the Balloon Fiesta inspires awe in a playful, childlike way. There's balloons in the air. They're colorful. The sun's coming up. You're eating sopapillas with honey on them.
Yeah.
You just got to smile.
So, okay, so this my in America, my list would be, I would agree with you about Burning Man. I haven't been to the Balloon Festival, so I can't speak to that. So my list of three would be Burning Man, Mardi Gras, and something you turned me on to, which would be Art Basel.
I love Art Basel too, dude.
I know you do.
It's hard for me to choose, but Burning Man and Art Basel are opposites in a way.
Yeah.
One is
They're
like
opposites.
dusty, but they're both creative, and that one's sleek and cool in Miami,
Yeah.
They're awesome. I
you
agree
got
with
South
that.
Beach.
I agree with that, man.
Yeah.
Art Basel, Miami is just great.
Yeah.
And I think I was there at your first Burning Man and first Art Basel.
Yeah,
or
you
did
were
you go on your own on your first Art
No,
Basel?
I went with you.
Yeah, that's fun.
My only regret about
That's
both
almost
of those
20 years ago.
20 years ago. My only regret about both of those first experiences is that I was so incredibly messed up. I mean, I just had so many drugs in me. Even Art Basel the first time I went, I was semi blacked out through most of it.
I remember, dude.
You remember? I had an incredible time, but I try to even not say out loud that I have regrets, but sometimes I can't help it. I think I've spent a certain amount of time where I could have been more present.
But regrets are lessons.
Yeah, they are.
If you don't have any regrets, then where have you learned your lessons?
I mean, I spent probably a full day blacked out on top of that RV, on top of it, and then I just rolled off. I mean, I don't know how I avoided breaking a limb or something, but I'm like, that was a whole day I could have added.
And that's another thing regarding Burning Man. Most people misunderstand. First of all, it's not crowded. People say, basically everything people think they hate about Burning Man is Coachella. So Burning Man, you have vast distances. You have more population density sitting exactly where any of you are than you do at Burning Man, period. So if you don't want a crowd, you just walk over there.
You just walk away.
And it's not necessarily drug related. You can run marathons. You can do sound baths. You can eat vegan.
I had a better time sober than
Yeah.
I did when I was going nuts. Man, there's this, I feel like I have this one memory. And it was I think it was like the cast of ER. I just remember John Stamos randomly. All of a sudden, I couldn't figure out how to work my bicycle, which was not in any way messed up. I just had forgot how to ride a bike and had to get help from John Stamos, who seemed like an angel at the moment. And then you and our wonderful friend Giuliano helped Army and I, who were dying of this lemon bar filled with weed, and
Yeah, it was before you knew how much was in those things, man.
Oh my God, that was the problem with edibles. Every now and then you would take what seemed like a safe quantity, and so this is. I think I can die. I think I'm going to spend the next.
And I took that. I
think I might die.
Yeah, that's like getting hit in the face by a skyscraper.
By a skyscraper.
Literally.
Yes. And we intentionally took that.
Yeah.
Well, listen, dude. I love you.
I love you too, brother.
I hope that you'll check in. I want to see.
Well-
I want you to come back when you have the word kind on you, and I want to see how that's going. But yeah, you're so well spoken. I appreciate this. You're everything that I'm
Thanks,
hoping
brother.
that this podcast can be. Awesome. And cut.